Ingrid Leary joins us now. Ingrid has been, I think, on holiday. Have you been on holiday, Ingrid?
I've been just looking after a very ill family member and having a bit of pretending I was in Bali doing yoga every day, meditating and eating amazing food and cooking for everyone. So it's been a holiday of sorts, and I'm very grateful for the time out.
Have you been up in the Waiheke with your parents and family up there?
No, they're in Taranaki actually.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I hope... getting any better?
Oh, no, this is a process. But, the timing, I'm very grateful to have this time, this pause as we get the votes in. And, a lot of colleagues are feeling likewise. I mean, I can't imagine how they're feeling waiting for the specials, but everybody that I know who's in politics, all sides of the House, has taken time out really to just let their nervous system settle and have some time out before we get back into the fray. Apart from, of course, those who are doing the coalition negotiations, I suspect.
Yes. Well, I can't imagine it. Well, yes, I don't know. We don't know how busy they are. They've run a pretty tight ship on communication on that issue. Fair enough, though, too. Ingrid, how are you expecting today to go? So I had a look, actually, at the last, I think, 9 elections. And there's only been one election in which the specials have supported or have gone national, the centre-right's way. I think 8 of those 9 elections, irrespective of who wins, the specials have tended to favour the centre-left. Would you expect that trend to continue today?
Yes, I do. Having said that, it's been an unusual election in that I don't think anybody predicted how many of the electorate seats would flip. Anything is possible, but the trend in the numbers, as you say, would suggest that they will go to the left-leaning parties. Which left-leaning parties is also
that's the other issue.
Interesting question.
Yeah, you're right on that one too. Listen, you've had chance now 3 weeks to look back and reflect. I actually just, you won't have heard me, but just prior to 11 o'clock I said you did a bloody good job actually, because when I look at the party vote in your electorate of Tairi, it went almost 2,000 votes against you, and yet you won by 1,300. So, you're responsible for a 3,000 vote flip, and that is a credit to you as a constituency MP. Those are valid comparisons, aren't they? So I look at the party vote and say, well, that's the way they voted in party. Then the impact of the individual candidates you measure in the electorate vote. That's a valid way of looking at it, isn't it?
It is, and that's a very a kind comment, so thank you for that. I put that down to just hard work. When people used to say, oh, you're a hard-working MP when I came into the job, I wasn't quite sure how to take it, because we're brought up in a society that values talent, and hard work is often seen as a little bit of the turtle in the hare is the turtle. But in this job, as you well know, hard work is incredibly important and can make the difference between winning a seat and not winning a seat, and also seeing a policy through and not seeing a policy through. So I do think it's around hard work throughout the 3 years, and I'm grateful that the people of Tairi looked at the 3 years rather than just the election campaign. I think people down south, my sense is that people have long memories and they're very principled, and so I'm grateful for that as well.
Well, the other thing was we also know, looking back now, both you and I, dispassionately, despite having perhaps different political views, that the South Island probably flipped quicker, particularly rural South Island, than anywhere else. It's really interesting. When they come back to do the political science on this, Ingrid, it'll be interesting to know, when did that momentum change from being very pro-government, very pro-Jacinda Ardern? When did it start to move, and where did it move first? Your leader, Chris Hipkins, said, he thought Auckland, second shutdown, that dealt with Auckland, and he said we also didn't get a grip on the ram raids and the law and order issue there quick enough. But I also got a feeling, and I'd be interested in your thought, that in the South Island, particularly in the rural parts, I can't comment on the North Island, but I guess that must have been the case as well, they started to turn real early.
Yeah, that's all good for thought. One thing I do know is I think that Tairi is the only general seat that has a mix of urban and rural that didn't flip. So I think this is not just about the South Island rural seats, but probably a trend across rural areas, it was always going to be difficult. My anecdotal sense is that a lot of the support for Labour in 2020, in my view, came from rural women who supported Jacinda Ardern. So I'm not sure if we were ever going to be able to hang on to those votes in a changed world with the types of policies that we had that were contentious in the rural areas, and then after Jacinda Ardern left. I could be wrong, but my sense is there was always going to be some flip back to their natural voting patterns. I'd have to look at the numbers really to see if that's true, but that's just in the conversations that we had. I used to go out to the rural areas when I first became an MP, and the women would quietly take me aside and say, "Oh, I'm voting for Labour. I'm voting for you. I love Jacinda, but don't tell my husband." That was what truly happened in big parts of my electorate around the Clutha area.
Right. I'm looking here at when the change in leadership happened, some of the opinion polls at that. So the start of this year. Gosh, it's been a big year, hasn't it? I mean, we're into November already.
Sure
It feels like we've been through 10 just because of the news cycle and what's been going on in the country. But it's been an incredible country, really, year in lots of ways. Jacinda Ardern resigned on the 19th of January. Chris Hipkins was sworn in a couple of days afterwards. But at that time, when I look at, there was a big burst. Labour, in actual fact, got back in the game in terms of public opinion polling. Ingrid, when Chris Hipkins became the Prime Minister in January, February of this year. Did you think at the time he would be able to sustain it until the end of the year?
Yeah, I certainly did. And part of the reason was I was one of the MPs who said very clearly to him, I thought he'd make a great leader, and could he please focus on core Labour policy? We were doing too much too quickly. That was what I was hearing very firmly around the electorate, not just in the rural areas but urban areas as well. And he seemed to listen to those of us who said that, and we saw the so-called policy bonfire, and that was controversial, but I think there was a sense that we needed a circuit breaker, and he could provide that also by simplicity and clarity of what we stood for. So I was heartened by those polls, and I did think we would be able to sustain it. And, and then there was a whole lot of stuff that went against us in terms of some pretty bad luck and bad international events. The war in Ukraine, we saw the cyclones and the weather events, which had a massive impact on people. And then I think you have quite rightly said at some point the media turned. The media decided it was time for change, and it's very difficult to campaign against that kind of media bias. At the end of the campaign, I think things got a bit fairer, and we started to see a narrative that was more what we would expect to see from the media. But there was a period in the middle there where it really did feel like there was quite a bias towards change, in a sense that the media somehow had decided the public wanted change and therefore thought they were reflecting that back to them.
I think I know when the mainstream media turned, and I think I know why too. But as of April of this year, Labour was still ahead in polls that were being conducted. So at the start of April. So no, I'll tell you what happened. Stuart Nash, Meka Whaitiri, Michael Wood and Kiri Allen. That's what happened. And the impact of those resignations over 3 months, that made everybody think that the Labour Party wasn't in charge of its own house. Don't you think?
I certainly think it was part of it. It wasn't the only thing, but it wasn't helpful.
All right. Now, looking ahead, could I just ask, Chris Hipkins, I said this on air, I'm looking at Labour's list, and I can't see anyone in that list, or anybody who's going to be re-elected to the House, Ingrid, who could possibly propose themselves as the leader of the Labour Party and succeed Chris Hipkins. Do you have that view too? The
view I have is that what the caucus feels, I think universally, is the absolute critical importance of being united and backing one person. I think that's the prevailing mood, and in that context, everyone's really happy with how the PM performed despite the context and the challenges of our time. So I suspect that we will see the caucus rally around him quite quickly. But I'm not going to speak for my fellow caucus members. I'm just picking up on the mood, which is where we saw the benefit of a smooth transition to Chippy after Jacinda left, and the unity that we showed. If there's no reason to change the guard, why would we? And unity at this point is the most important factor.